Black-eyed children are an American contemporary legend of paranormal creatures that resemble children between ages 6 and 16. With pale skin and black eyes, they are reportedly seen hitchhiking or begging, or are encountered on the doorsteps of residential homes. The following is 5 eyewitness encounters. Number 5, You Must Let Me In. On March 17th, 2008, I had my one and only encounter with a black-eyed kid. Before my experience, I had never heard of anything having to do with the black-eyed kids. I was sitting outside of a hairdresser's in an old Chevy pickup, waiting for my mom to get her hair cut. About 15 minutes had passed and I saw some kid walking back and forth along the sidewalk in front of the car. At first, I thought I recognized him as one of my friends from school, so I banged on the front windshield until he looked my way. It was not anyone I knew. At this point, I was not scared at all, not yet. The boy walked over to the side of my car and just stares, I think to let me get a good look at his eyes. Let me tell you, if you have never seen a black-eyed kid, you have no idea what to imagine. Pupils black as the night sky. The boy whispers, "You must let me in," and then I locked the car doors and ducked down into the space below the seats. 5 minutes later, he was gone. When my mother got into the car, she told me a boy with black eyes had come into the hairdresser's and had insisted for my mother to give him the keys to the car. She refused. Thank God she did. Number 4, Survival Story. I once assisted these black-eyed kids. I'm not sure what they do, but it feels as if they are ripping your soul out. They get really close to you, and you get amazingly drowsy. If it weren't for my girlfriend showing up mid-invasion and kicking them out, I'd probably be dead. I didn't even see the black eyes until after I had let them in. They're getting smarter. Number 3, Soon. I live in a big city in the South. I had just got home from the movie theater. I was lurking on the subreddit r/creepy and heard a knock on the door. I walked over, confused because I live alone and I'm a recluse. As I approached the door, I felt pure terror. The feeling you get when you feel like death is imminent or you're facing your biggest fear. When I opened the door, I was shaking madly. I was staring into the face of a teenage girl. She asked if she could enter the premises because her mom had left town and she lost her keys. She claimed she needed a couch to sleep on and was cold. I blinked and screamed bloody murder, slamming the door in her face. I ran to my room and grabbed my revolver and sat in the recliner, facing the door, until I dozed off. 2, Three's Company. So a month ago, my friend was talking to me about these creepy-ass kids that were hanging around his house. He seemed scared and he doesn't scare easily. He said they always wanted to use his phone and wanted to come in, but he always said no. A week ago, he told me he was going to let them in, and I didn't really give it any attention. But he's been missing ever since. I've gone over to his house, but it's empty, and my phone calls aren't going through. I've heard about black-eyed children. I have begun to suspect that my friend is dead. Number 1, Midnight Caller. It almost felt like a dream. I woke up to my dog, Lucy, barking. She was upright on the bed where my husband and I were sleeping with our 22-month-old daughter. Staring at our door like an unknown stranger was out there rummaging around. I thought she was freaking out over a house noise. We'd only had her for about 3 months and she was still a puppy. It could have been anything, our roommate, a creak from the house settling, the awnings moving outside in the breeze. I wasn't too concerned, initially. I decided the best bet would be to open the door and show her nothing was there. It sounds a bit silly, but it's what we do with our daughter when she gets scared, and I figured it should work with the puppy too. I opened the door and she raced to the front door. She stood there, snarling at the door. It was an angry, violent growl, one I have never heard her make before. I looked groggily at her and opened the baby gate, blocking the doorway, planning to open the door and show her everything was okay. The second my hand reached out for the deadbolt, Lucy went wild. She started barking and jumped toward me, and when I touched the metal, she suddenly changed her temper. She whimpered, almost like she was afraid, and backing down. As her mannerism changed, so did mine. I wasn't calm anymore. I had been flooded with a mixture of fear and dread. I looked through the peephole. I can't explain why I looked, but I did. Outside were 2 kids. One was just a smidgen shorter than me and didn't look much younger. I'm 21 and she looked to be 16 or 17. She was slender and pale. Her hair was a light shade of honey blonde, and she wore it long, about mid-back, with long, thin, blunt bangs in the front that covered most of her eyes. She wore jeans, a light wash that's popular right now, and a thin-looking olive-collared pullover-style hoodie. She held the hand of a small girl who looked to be around 3 or 4 in the same style jeans and a button-down ivory cardigan. The smaller one looked at the door shyly, but had the same shade of hair, tied back in a ponytail. She held a stuffed toy under her free arm, and it was identical to the one my daughter has, as was their style of dress. Had it not been for the feeling of overwhelming dread and fear, I probably would have asked these children in and given them some tea or hot chocolate to get them out of the bitter cold. Something about them seemed off at this point. I hadn't made any noise, I hadn't shushed a dog or grumbled, nothing. I hadn't turned on any lights, these kids had no indicators I was at the door. Then the older one spoke. She had a voice that was mature, confident, strong, and accentless. She held her head tilted downward and I couldn't see her eyes. She said, "We have to use your phone." I stood frozen in fear. How did she know I was there? She raised her head to face me directly, and that was when I saw her eyes. There was a reason I couldn't see them through her bangs before. They were black, or midnight blue, or a dark, dark purple. They were otherworldly. "Our mother is worried," the smaller girl said. As someone who has always been interested in creepy stories, I knew what she was the second she looked at me through the door. I have never been one to believe in these things as a staunch atheist and skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I had written off many a ghost story from friends and family members, eager to tell their tale. I didn't believe it. Still, I couldn't rationalize my way out of this. I was standing with nothing but a thin wooden door between me and a black-eyed kid. There was no questioning what was right in front of me. I did not answer her. Slowly and silently, I backed away from the door, Lucy still cowering at my ankles. She kept talking. "Just let us in to use your phone." I took another step back, and with that step, the tone changed. At first, she seemed polite. When I took that second step back, she became commanding, almost hostile. "We're not going to hurt you. If we wanted to do that, we would have broken in. I'll ask again. May we come in and use your phone?" Lucy snarled at the door, and I inched backward, though something inside me seemed to be slowly pulling me back toward the door. It wasn't a physical pulling so much as a subconscious need to go back and let them in. I got to my room, covered up the window, locked the door, and sat there in the dim light of the nightlight. I heard her call me back to the door once more, and then quiet. I didn't go back to sleep that night, and I haven't slept right since. I know from reading about them that black-eyed children can't just come in without permission. I knew they haven't hurt anyone, but I still fear I'll be the exception. When I told my husband, he said it was just a dream. He keeps telling me to forget it, but this lingering feeling of sadness, this dread when the house is silent at night, this fear of a knock at the door, this tells me otherwise.